Hello and welcome to the lecture for Chapter 7. This chapter deals with target markets, which I think is one of the most important subjects in this course. It essentially deals with narrowing down who you're trying to pursue so that you can know them in a more meaningful way. So I'll talk one about knowing your customers. I'll talk about defining the target market. I'll talk about ways to segment the market. And then lastly, I'll talk about market size and trends. So the phrase know your customer is kind of a throwaway phrase. Everybody hears that, everybody knows it, but what does that really mean? Well, one, it means who they are, right? Knowing their names and identity and all of that. But it also means knowing kind of what keeps them up at night, what worries them, what dreams they have for the future, what do they really care about, what problems do they have, what frustrations do they have in their life. If you know that about your customers, then you're in a unique position to solve problems for them, to get to breathe loyalty to your company. So these are all different kinds of questions that you want to be able to ask about your customer. And I think that what you can see is if you define your customers as something that's too broad, say all college students in the US or all citizens in Washington state, then it's really difficult to say anything meaningful about a group that's that large and that diverse. So a little bit about market orientation versus product orientation. What you'll probably find is that most companies are fairly product oriented. They spend a lot of time thinking about their product, working on engineering of their product, working on refining manufacturing techniques, adding features and benefits for customers. They're very focused on what they do. And the problem with that is it's hard to do that and also be equally focused on the market, on customers. And so companies that are overly product focused tend to miss changes in their customers, miss changes in the market, and get blindsided. Here's an example I've listed here from the company that bought my company from me. This is some verbiage on in their catalog that's directed towards childcare directors. And you can see they describe a couple of different products, one of which is an HDPE playhouse. Well, HDPE stands for high density polyethylene. It's the type of material that they've made part of the playhouse out of. That doesn't mean anything to a childcare director. That's an example of being overly product focused. So market analysis versus a marketing plan, those are two different things. So a market analysis is looking at attributes of your target market, understanding different aspects about them. Where do they shop? Where do they get information? What is their spending ability? What kind of benefits are they looking for in the product? Knowing how many people that fit that description are in your area. All of that is analyzing the market. A marketing plan then is something separate, and we'll do that in this class, but that's deciding what is your message going to be to that market and how are you going to deliver that message. Is it going to be on the radio? Is it going to be on a banner of a website? Is it going to be a mailer to their house? How are you going to reach them? So in the long run, a market analysis can save you money because it can keep you from chasing other markets or pursuing a market that doesn't have the spending ability to do business with you. So it can save you money for sure. Also keep in mind that you might have multiple levels of customers. So some of you are going to be selling directly to the end user, the person that consumes your product. Others of you have to go through multiple levels. Maybe you have to kind of first make the sale with a distributor and then make the sale with a customer, as an example. And it's important to avoid being overly broad in your definition of who your target market is. You want it to be refined down to where you can say something meaningful and reach that group. So again, I would err on the side of being narrower rather than broader. So market segmentation, that's companies will form their customers into different groups called market segments. And the reason they do that is these market segments have things in common. so that it's easier to research a group, easier to design products for a group, and easier to communicate with a group if they all share something in common. And I'll give you some examples in a minute. So it's important that the way you divide customers is in a way that is meaningful to your business. For example, if I wanted to sell to all people over 50 years old in Thurston County that have a net income over $200,000, then whether or not they have blue eyes or brown eyes doesn't matter, or their race maybe doesn't matter. So again, I would look at how to do that with companies that in terms of factors that mean something to your business. So here's a graphic I found in another textbook that I really like, different ways to segment the market. So this slide, I'd recommend maybe you print it full size so you can read it easily. This may give you some ideas about ways you could segment your market and then look at one or two segments that you want to pursue. So the easiest one is geographical. So if your business is such that people need to come to your business or you need to go to their home, then geography might be important. So are we talking about the city of Lacey, Thurston County, Western Washington, that sort of thing. Another is demographic. So I might be pursuing a particular age category of customer, or men versus women, maybe a certain income level or education status, maybe their occupation. So those would be demographic traits that I could look for people. And again, I would refer you back to that Reference USA site on the Timberland Regional Library's website to be able to get numbers of people that fit these categories. Then we have psychographic, or let me go to product related first. So those would be issues about your product specifically. So are they customers that seek luxury? Are they customers that seek value, safety, comfort, convenience, all of those things? What can you say about people with those attributes? And then last, psychographic, which I think is the most interesting. That's kind of lifestyles, attitudes, opinions. If I'm going to sell a product that's health related, then maybe I want to pursue people that run 5K races or are members of gyms or those kinds of things. And that's another way to differentiate groups of people. So the target market will define attributes of your product. So knowing who it is that you're trying to pursue, and I want to mention, you'll take business from anybody, right? It's not to say that it's somebody that comes into your store that isn't in your target market, you send them away. You'll take business from anybody. It's just not that you're pursuing everybody. So the needs of your target market will determine what kind of features and, more importantly, what kind of benefits your product offers. You want to offer the right benefits, not too many. Too many benefits raise the price and cost of the object or the product you're selling. What form of packaging will be required? You don't want to burden a customer with getting rid of packaging that's a hassle for them. It's a reason for them not to work with you. What form of marketing you'll use. So again, will you use radio or a billboard or flyers that come in their mailbox, or emails? So what method are you using to contact people? Your group will determine what method is going to work best. Where you are located or where your product or services are located is going to be determined by where your target market is. And then lastly, how are you actually going to ask for the order, make sales? So your target market should be definable. So you should be able to determine common traits among that group. There's an example on page 107 of that. Those traits should be meaningful to your business, so it shouldn't be just something random. It needs to be sizable, meaning it needs to be big enough to support your business, right? If you, and you could do simple math on that by using that Reference USA database. You can say how many of my target market are in my geographic region. And if I sold to maybe a fourth of them, how much would they spend each week? Would that be enough to support my business? So obviously you don't want to be chasing 5 people, that kind of thing. And then are they reachable? Is there a way to get your message to them? So there's more information about demographic descriptions, lifestyle, and psychographic on the pages that I note here on this slide in your textbook. So as an example, say that I want to open a dry cleaning business. And I might immediately just say, from a geographic standpoint, I'm going to sell to everybody in Thurston County because there's a limit to how far people are going to drive to get their dry cleaning done. So I can't really sell to people up in Shelton or in Tacoma, that sort of thing. So I want to focus on Thurston County. There's 235,000 people over 18. I don't think children get dry cleaning. So look at the over 18 population. I got that from the US Census. And that would potentially be my customer group. Now, what can I say that's meaningful about dry cleaning for just under 250,000 people? Not much. I can't really figure out what their problems might be or how I might solve them or how I might kind of speak to them. So I want to narrow it down a little bit. Let's say I narrow it down to people that work for the state of Washington. There's 26,000 state employees in Thurston County. So now I've narrowed it down a little bit. Those people all have something in common. They're state workers, okay? The problem is not all state workers need dry cleaning, right? Some of them work for the Department of Transportation on road crews. They don't need dry cleaning. Some of them work for agencies that don't necessarily have the culture of having a professional dress code, so they're not relevant. So I need to narrow it down a little bit further. So in this case, let's look at just the people that work at the Department of Revenue. So the majority of them are here in Olympia in one big office. There's 1,200 employees in that agency. And I know from talking to different state workers that have worked in different agencies that the informal dress code at the Department of Revenue, informal in the sense that it's not written down or a rule, is that they dress fairly professionally. Men often wear ties and jackets, women wear skirts, that sort of thing, dresses. And so they are an agency that would more likely need dry cleaning. So once I narrow it down to those 1,200 employees, then I can think about what they really need. As an example, I would imagine most of those people are very busy, they have families, they don't have a lot of spare time, so convenience is at a premium. Now that I've narrowed it down, I can offer convenience to that group of people at a single location. I can buy a step van. I can come every Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock and pick up their dry cleaning and drop off their dry clean clothes. I can make it easy for them. Do you think anybody in that department would prefer to drive somewhere else to do their dry cleaning if I'm going to come to them? So that's a big benefit. The other advantage there is that I now can communicate easily with that group. I can talk to the head of HR, ask them to send out an email letting employees know about this new benefit. I could post flyers in their lunchroom. I could do all kinds of things to get the word out about what I can do for the people there. So again, I've narrowed it down. I've identified a problem for that group and figured out a means of solving it. So the former company that I own, Big Toys, our market broke down like this. This is for commercial playground equipment like you'd see in parks and schools and stuff. So about half of the market is park department. So some big cities and counties like City of Chicago or City of Seattle, and then small to medium cities like Tumwater and Lacey and Thurston County, places like that, all across the country. Those two different groups have different needs. So I found fairly quickly that it wasn't worth chasing business with large cities and counties. I would take an order from them, of course, but we were more successful targeting small and medium cities. When it comes to schools, the market is new school construction and then parent-teacher organizations, so PTAs. New school construction, I found that it was the construction company that made the decision about what playground was going to go in. They don't really care about what's best for kids. They're buying primarily on price. So that's not a market that I bothered pursuing. PTAs, on the other hand, their children are going to be playing on the playground. So they're very interested in what the benefits are of the playground. They're more interested in safety, all of those kinds of things than new school construction companies would be. So that's where I targeted my message. When it comes to early childhood centers, so daycare centers or preschools, there's a lot of different variety of different kinds of businesses that fit that category. The one that I was most interested in were hippie preschools. Those are preschools that really push children being outside, having hands-on experiences, very limited technology, if any at all. So a different kind of approach to giving children learning experiences. When I would go to conferences for that group, I found that quite often the keynote speaker was Richard Louv, and he wrote this book, Last Child in the Woods, about what he terms nature deficit disorder. The fact that today's kids spend a lot more time looking at screens. They are not climbing trees, building forts in the woods, playing in a stream, rolling down a hill, those kinds of things. And so when I saw customers, potential customers, walking around these conferences with this book in their hand, I knew that they were really buying into that really strongly. So I looked at what could my company do that would speak to that group. So I took an existing playhouse we had, I added a few small components and turned it into a green thumb potting shed. So a way to integrate nature with play. And I have to tell you that people came into my booth when I had this product there all set up, and they hugged me and asked me how soon they could get one, that sort of thing. So it was a case where I was able to segment the market, look at what a particular segment of the market was thinking about, talking about, and caring about, and I was able to fairly easily modify an existing product to exactly meet their needs. So a few other things to look at for your target market. What are their purchasing patterns? Is it a recurring purchase that they make frequently, or is it a one-time purchase? It is at a certain time of the year, those sorts of things. What are their buying sensitivities? So how do they prefer to buy things? So how can I make it easy? Again, we talked earlier about the size of the market, but we also want to know, is that target market growing or shrinking? And then there's some examples for this segment of your plan on page 119 through 121. So take a look at that. So that's the end of this lecture. I look forward to talking to you in the next chapter. Thank you.